Welcome to Uncharted Paths, where we explore how unexpected detours can lead to remarkable destinations. When Dave DiAngelo first came to New York, his story was supposed to unfold on stage. But like any great plot twist, life had other plans. Ones that would pull him behind the curtain of digital media just as the ad tech revolution was getting underway. Since then, Dave has built a career on momentum and reinvention, leading business development at Rubicon Project, guiding marketplace strategy at InMobi and Emoto, and now founding Playmaker Sports Media. His latest chapter brings together his love of storytelling, his talent for connecting people and platforms, and his belief that brands can do more than advertise, they can inspire. It's a story that reminds us sometimes the best way forward starts when the script gets flipped. So Dave, welcome.
That's awesome. I love that lead-in.
It's fun to hear your story told like that, right?
Yeah, it's great.
So can you tell us what you do? How do you introduce yourself at a dinner party?
It's funny. Somebody just asked me what I do. I think the high-level answer is I'll say I run a sports media company. If people know a little bit more about advertising or advertising technology, I'll let them know I run a sports curation business. And then if they push a little bit more, I'll say we're this intersection of advertising, philanthropy, and sports. So we connect sports audiences, sports content, and we leverage that media spend on sports charities. Or if somebody really pushes us, we say, you know when that ad pops up while you're watching a Golden Knights game or a Phillies game, we make that happen.
Do they think that's a good thing or a bad thing?
You know, it's interesting. Throughout my career, I used to explain what programmatic is, right? Yep. I'd say, hey, when you're reading the Wall Street Journal, you know, that BMW ad's not just waiting for you. We take everything we know about you and we auction you off to 100,000 people and fashion you can blink your eyes. That's how that ad comes. And they're like, oh, it's your fault, right?
Yeah.
And I'll always say, well, it's my fault. The internet is free. You're welcome. Do you want to pay $5,000 for all the apps on your phone? Do you want to pay for every article you read? Or do you want to engage with some hopefully relevant advertising and then have that article as a value exchange?
Yep.
Usually after that, they're like, oh, that's a little bit nicer. Like, thank you. Yeah.
Well, and I bet that the ads are, like in sports, the ads probably get a lot closer to being relevant too, I would imagine.
I hope so. I mean, we're trying to be very deliberate with who we're working with and the audiences that we're creating and who we're bringing into this experience for us.
Nice. So before we get into your career story, can you talk a little bit about what success looked like early in your life? What was your plan? How did you imagine your life unfolding?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it certainly is not what my life is now. You know, I discovered the arts at a really young age. My parents used to bring us up to New York. I grew up outside of Philly in South Jersey. We would come up and see shows on Broadway from time to time. My father used to sing us songs from My Fair Lady as lullabies, and growing up, it was always I wanted to be on stage. We had a really wonderful arts program where I grew up. And success for me was, you know, I'll be on New York, I'll be singing, I'll be doing these things. And then I think on a personal level, I came from a very loving place. And so success for me was to try to replicate that.
Right.
2 loving sisters, 2 loving parents, Irish and Roman Catholic, so many aunts and uncles would come over all the time. And that to me was success. Big, happy, warm family kind of experience. And so I think that probably still I would consider that something that I would define as success for me. But from a career perspective, it was traveling the country and singing my songs, you know, and being on stage. And I tended to be one of 2 things. So when you're my size, you tend to either be the bad guy or the comedic relief / best friend. That's actually a really difficult lesson a lot of actors have to learn, is it's not who you think you are, it's how is a casting director going to see you.
Right.
Like a big joke I always made was, I have a leading man's voice in a character actor's body. that makes you self-reflect. It's also your first lesson in, you know, it's not just, it is how the world perceives you.
Yeah.
Right? That's a lesson that you have to learn as an actor and as an adult.
Right. What's the part you're playing and how do you move through the world?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about success there, and then from a career perspective, did you have additional thoughts on what the career would look like?
I wish I could say that I did. I mean, I came to New York right out of college and did all the things that actors do. I was a bartender, I was a bouncer, I worked in real estate, and I auditioned all the time. And I worked a lot as an actor for a young guy, right? Yeah. I was working 50 weeks a year. Broadway national tours I was cast on. I world premiered a bunch of off-Broadway shows. I was working quite a bit. And that to me felt like success at that time. I was with a woman at the time who I dearly loved. That was my future, I thought. My future was, I'm working enough to pay my bills, and I have a woman I love in my life, and that's all I need. And I was very satisfied with that.
You were in a good space. You were in a great space, even, sounds like.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Yeah, I was crossing the street in New York City. A cab driver ran a red light, crushed directly into my left knee, fell up on the hood, smacked my head, concussion, 12 broken bones, torn ACL, torn MCL, torn LCL. The cops are coming over and they're saying we have an ambulance coming. I'm an actor, so I said, what's this going to cost? I don't have insurance. I hadn't worked enough weeks in Actors Equity to qualify for the insurance program. So I was like, what is it going to cost me? I can walk. And they're like, both your legs are broken. You definitely cannot walk to the hospital. We have to call this ambulance. And they're like, it'll be covered by this thing called no-fault insurance. Don't worry about it. But then I spent the next 10 months unable to walk, 2 surgeries. I'm going to probably TMI you and be a little personal here. The woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with got really nervous that I couldn't walk anymore, and she left me.
Sorry.
So it was kind of a brutal awakening of, wait a minute, I was really happy, and something that was completely out of my control just took all of this away from me, right? And I'm laying in the hospital and I'm thinking, God, I need a real job. Like, I need health insurance. I need a paycheck when I can't walk. I need to make sure that this doesn't happen to me. And what if I was in my 40s, 50s, 60s, and suddenly what I was content with was certainly not enough anymore, because we all have an ego. I was like, well, I went to Boston College, so I deserve a good job if I'm going to give up on the arts. I deserve to work for a cool company, a fun company. And I literally Googled fun companies to work for in New York City. That is actually what I did. And I don't know how, but I ended up with interviews at both Google and Yahoo. Google, I was 10 interviews in, and they said there might be 2 more. I don't know if you remember Google back in the early 2000s. Their interview process was insane. Yahoo, I went in, and there was a division there called Hot Jobs, which was a job board. And they said, hey, you've been dancing and singing. What do you know about digital media or tech or anything? And I said, well, you have a sales script? I memorize scripts for a living. You want me to talk to 5 people in a boardroom? I've sung in front of 5,000 people. Right? You want me to tell a story? That's what I do. I'm a storyteller. And they were like, you know what? Great, here's a job.
Here's a script.
Yeah. And it was brutal. I hated it. I absolutely hated it.
It was cold calling, wasn't it?
Cold calling, boiler room. We had to make 100 phone calls a day, and there was a counter on our phone. Or we had to talk for, I think it was 2.5 hours a day, and there was like a technology on the phone that said how long your phone calls were. So I went from sitting in a circle and doing breathing exercises with people and looking into their eyes and being an artist and singing. And I remember my second week, I showed up at 8:01 because the elevator was running late. And my boss said, work starts at 8, not 8:01, and your khakis are wrinkled. And I was like, oh my God, what is my life? This is absurd.
I need a breathing exercise.
And the really funny thing is, they paid so little for those entry-level jobs that I made more money as an actor than I did working for Yahoo. My base salary was $31,500 a year at Yahoo to work.
In New York City.
And 8 to 6 in New York City. This is so long ago now, right? This is 2006, 2007. I think almost everybody I worked with at Yahoo thought I was just like a jerk, because I would leave the office at 6, I'd grab a bite to eat, grab like an hour nap, and then I'd go to a nightclub. And that's where I was working security. And I'd work security from 9 p.m. until 5 a.m. when I'd walk the manager out and help them lock up.
Oh, wow.
And then I'd get 2 hours of sleep and I'd go back to Yahoo. And I was a miserable piece of crap.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a good time.
It was brutal. It's one of those things where, my family, when I got run over by that taxi, were like, moved back to the Philly area. And I was like, I refuse to let New York beat me. Like, that was my mentality, was like, no, even whatever I need to do, I'm a New Yorker now. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna be in the arts anymore, but I am a New Yorker. I love the city, I love the vibe, I love the energy, I love the people. So I will figure it out. So I was working at Yahoo 5 days a week. I was working security at nightclubs 3 nights a week. I was showing properties and real estate on Saturdays and Sundays. And I was burning myself out. I was 24 years old, 25 years old, just completely burned out. I refused to let the city beat me.
I talk about rolling with the punches there. How would you say that initial experience shaped how you lead and how you make decisions now?
I know the whole kind of purpose of this podcast is the winding paths we can take. You mentioned the word pivot. I like the word pivot. I know it's corporate jargon, but I like it because it implies there's a momentum and a shift.
Yeah.
And so you're building. So much like how I built on my skills as an actor to be a performer, to come into a kind of a sales role, and that's what opened up the door for me at Yahoo. Now I understand a metrics-driven approach to sales because that's the boiler room that I just came out of. But I also knew it made me miserable, and I knew I didn't want to be involved in that type of business smile and dial all day. And so I don't know that it necessarily taught me any leadership skills, but it taught me perseverance, and it taught me that sometimes we have to do things we don't like to learn and to grow. I have some friends, and I think they've lived really blessed lives, right? They've never lost a parent still. We're in our 40s. They've never lost a job. And I think that's wonderful for them, and they have wonderful, blessed lives. But I also don't see a lot of growth from them. And so I think these obstacles, these challenges, that is what I take from it, is I grow from these experiences. I try to take something from everything. Like,
Don't lose the lesson.
when we talk about me being run over, yeah, my knee still hurts 20 years later.
Yeah.
That sucks. But it put me on this really incredible path where I love my life right now.
Right.
And so you can't take that for granted. Would I still be going up and doing summer stock in my 40s? Who knows? Maybe I would have been much more successful and had a brilliant Broadway career, but I'm quite happy with how things have turned out. And,
Right.
and if I hadn't been run over, they wouldn't be where they are. And I would have married the wrong woman.
Right. So you talked about the acting portion, getting into corporate. You made a few stops in corporate, and then you're an entrepreneur now. So before we get to what you're up to today, talk a little bit about the path. You went from the boiler room of hot jobs, and then how did your career wind over the next decade or so?
It's interesting because, again, I've taken some breaks in my career. We won't go through every stop, but I ended up at a company called ValueClick, which is now known as Epsilon. And I learned about the parts of the internet that I knew I didn't want to be involved in. I don't know if anybody listening to this knows what co-registration or continuity is, but we were selling like education leads for people who wanted to go to the University of Phoenix, or teeth whitening, acai belly fat removal, just something I fell into. And again, burned out, did not like it, missed my yoga circles and my breathing circles from the arts. But I was quite good at it. I was quite good at developing relationships with people, opening up budgets, selling through a value prop. So I learned all of these sort of sales skills over the years, and ValueClick sold our business unit to a smaller company. And I decided I was just going to take a year and travel the world. So I quit, and they were amazing, actually. They actually said, Dave, you made us so much money, don't quit. We'll fire you so you can collect unemployment while you're traveling.
Yeah.
And we'll pay you your commissions for the next 3 months.
Nice.
So they were awesome.
Yeah.
And I took that time and I went on a little walkabout. All these experiences I may not have ever had. Like I went mountain luging in New Zealand, and I went jet boating, and I got scuba certified on the Great Barrier Reef. It was an amazing time. I feel like so many of us work to do that in our 50s and 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
When maybe your whole body hurts. And I know my body is going to hurt from the car accident in my
Yeah.
50s and 60s and 70s. And so it was just a really wonderful time for me to reset. But I quite literally came back to the United States with $500
Wow.
at the age of 30.
Yep.
That's what I had left. I don't know how, but I ended up working for a company. It was the first U.S. hire for a company called Interactive, which is now part of Digital Turbine, Fiber. It was my first introduction to something called programmatic, which is sort of like this automated way of buying and selling media online. And I was trying to sell a deal into this company called Rubicon Project, this gentleman named Todd Smith. And he said, we don't want to work with your company, but we do need someone to come build out our entire mobile business. And that was it. That was the rocket fuel. That was the moment in my career where everything flipped. Todd is one of my best friends to this day, wonderful person, wonderful
great
mentor.
guy.
I've
Yeah.
learned so much from him. I worked for him, this gentleman, Jay Sears, this gentleman, Josh Wexler. And I came over to Rubicon to build out their mobile business. It was my first experience with a very exciting culture. Everybody seemed like we were pointed in the same direction. That was the first time I experienced
And
that.
what caused you to take the step into entrepreneurship with Playmaker Sports?
Yeah, I think a lot of my pivots have been by necessity, right? Most of the things that have driven me were not necessarily within my control. I didn't have control of that car running around the corner at 35 miles an hour, right? I didn't have control of losing my dad when I was a teenager. We went from upper middle class to lower middle class overnight. And so I think inherently knowing that through no fault of your own, everything can be taken away in a moment's notice has affected my view of the world. So it's made me willing to take more risks. I don't mind swinging for the fences because I already know I've overcome these things in the past. I already know the entire fabric of my life has been ripped away from me 2 to 3 times, and I'm still here.
Right.
And so if this doesn't work out, I really think it's going to. But if it doesn't, that's fine. I'll take all the things I learned from it and we'll roll that into the next opportunity. I will say my last job before Playmaker was really eye-opening for me. I went over to fix a platform that had a lot of problems for 7 to 8 years. And I was talking to somebody I really respect, and I was like, they're just doing all these things wrong. They're doing this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. I'm like, I don't understand. And he's like, you know that it's wrong and they don't. It's so obvious to you, but it's not obvious to them because they're not coming from the place that you came from. And I sort of looked at that leadership team and said, I thought I needed to learn a little bit more before I did my own thing, but I can do better. I took a business that had lost money for 7 straight years and turned it profitable in 1 year for somebody else. So why not do it for me?
Right.
You realize that maybe the knowledge that you think is obvious and pedantic and regular and everyone has, maybe they don't have that knowledge.
Right.
Maybe you shouldn't be suffering from imposter syndrome.
So congratulations. Turning that around is great. And then excited to hear that you've got really great wind at your back with what you're doing now.
Yeah, a lot of momentum. We're excited. I brought on a new CRO. We have a marketing team now. The greatest part is just getting that validation in market. When you go out and you're like, I hope people like this. And then for people to come back and say, yeah, let's do a test.
Right.
Let's run. Let's set up some deals. Let's do business together and see what happens. That just feels amazing. And philanthropy and sports have a long history. So I started thinking through and looking at who are some really good philanthropic organizations that are sports related. And we selected 5 charities: Philadelphia Eagles Autism Foundation, the Women in Sports Foundation, Jimmy V Org, which is cancer research based on Jimmy Valvano, a college basketball coach, Pat Tillman Foundation for veteran assistance, and then the TGR Foundation, which is Tiger Woods Underprivileged Youth Education Group. And I just feel like that is just a huge swath of social good that we can do. And it's really about saying, we're going to take a percentage of any media spend that goes on our platform, and we're going to split it across those 5 charities.
Right.
It's not overly complicated. This isn't rocket science. I'm not reinventing the wheel. It just comes from a desire to be purpose-driven in our mission, to wake up and say, okay, yeah, thematically, let's stay in line with sports, but let's do some good in the world. Let's make sure if we're working 8, 10, 12 hours a day, that it's for something better than ourselves and our wallets.
Yeah. And that's got to resonate really well with the team. I know your team is small, but even so, like it
is. I mean,
and with your clients even, I have to imagine.
I hope with the clients. I mean, those are certainly the types of clients that we want to work with, are people who are excited by this mission. The cultural thread in our group, like we're 5 people right now, right? But yeah, it's exciting for them to be able to wake up and know that they're doing this good. And so right now, everything is up and to the right. That's great. I've been around long enough to know that that's not always going to be the case.
Yeah.
And so I think knowing that you're doing this for something greater than yourself is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're hustling to get that. Like, it's not just showing up.
No, it's not. It's not
it.
showing up. I mean, we're hustling. We're out there. We're having conversations. I mean, let's take it back. Let's go full circle. We're not doing 100 phone calls a day, but that metrics-driven approach, that is something I take from my time at Yahoo with me now, where I'm like, hey, the team needs to be having 30 meetings a week, or else we're probably not going to do what we want to do. And we need to track this stuff in our Salesforce account. All these old things over the many years of my career of like, if it's not in Salesforce, it didn't happen. These things that go back 10 years, and you take one thing from this company, one thing from this company, this boss did this great, this boss did this in a really wonderful way. And it adds up, and that momentum builds. And then when you pivot, you have all of that growth behind you, and you're moving in a new direction. So.
Yeah, the momentum is so key.
But you need to have some humility, right? You need to be able to look back and say, maybe that didn't go the way I wanted it to go. What can I take away from it? What did I learn from this not panning out as I thought it was going to pan out? From leaving the arts behind in our breathing circles and having to deal with corporate America and wrinkled khakis, there's still something to take away from that.
Yeah. What has surprised you the most about entrepreneurship or your journey so far?
I mean, I don't want to be super cliche, but I do think 90% of everything is showing up. And that, I don't want to say I'm surprised by that, but it's like, we can figure out what we need to figure out, as I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think what's surprising to me is how calm I am.
You do seem very calm.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, this is going to work out. This is a good idea. This is a good business. There's good people behind it. And I feel confident in the direction we're heading. And that maybe surprised me. I thought I'd be a lot more anxious. I thought there'd be more sleepless nights. But I just feel really empowered that we own this thing.
You got to build what you love.
Well, exactly. I'm surrounded by good people right now. We're doing fun things. And I'm surprised how kind of calm I am about all of it.
So you've touched on this a little bit, but talk just a little bit about some of the work that you did to get there. You talked about the 30 calls a week. What was that journey like to get to that point? Because it's happened relatively quickly, but it still probably doesn't always feel like that, I would imagine, some days.
It does feel like it's come pretty quickly, but when we look at it, it's been a year. I was a little skeptical at first. Somebody kind of came to me with a half-formed idea. It did take us going back and forth 4 or 5 times to say, I would like to verticalize because I think that's more interesting, to become experts in something. So when people think Playmaker, they think sports, or when they think sports, they think Playmaker. That niche to me is a lot more powerful than just going out and knocking on doors and saying, what do you need and how can I find it for you? It's no, we're the experts at this. That was something that we did in a very deliberate way. And then trying to bring in that philanthropy as a business model sort of piece came from me talking to different people who felt a little burned out in the ecosystem. I have tried to build my career from a place of honesty and transparency and being a good human being. I've worked for some people who are not good human beings, and that is never who I want to be. Everybody has good days, everybody has bad days. Everything's a learning opportunity. I used to go into my dad's bank. My dad was a banker. He got sick when I was 13. But I remember certain lessons that he taught me. We would say hello to the security guard at the front and the janitor and his secretary and his other VPs and the other SVPs. And it was treat everybody the same.
Right.
Be a good person. Learn everybody's names. Really funny, actually, sports story is my dad was not a sports guy. And he got tickets to the Philadelphia Eagles through his bank and invited our neighbors so that they could teach me the game. And he said that it would be important for me later in my career to relate to other men in the office about sports. How crazy is that? We never had discussions as an adult because I lost him, but he probably felt alienated at work sometimes because he didn't know what was going on with the Eagles or the Phillies or the Sixers or whatever. And he was like, oh, all right, we're going to bring our next door neighbor. He's going to teach Dave all about football at this game. You know, what incredible foresight. And now here I am running a sports business.
Yeah, that's probably wasn't even what he had in mind, but it works on so many levels.
And honestly, I didn't come into this conversation even thinking about it. That just kind of popped into my head, that story, because that's such a beautiful, complete circle there.
Yeah, that's incredible. If you could tell yourself, your younger self, the version before the accident, something about life and careers, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've burned very few bridges, and that is something that I'm proud of. I'm not saying I've burned none. We've all burned some.
We all make mistakes.
Yeah, I'm not even saying they're mistakes. Sometimes bridges need to be burned.
This is true, yes. That's a great point.
But by and large, like, treat people how you want to be treated. Learn from everything. Never stop learning. Always be growing. Some people have their meditation or whatever it is they do in the morning. I read for 30 minutes every morning. Sometimes it's not educational. Sometimes it is. But I just want my brain working at all times and taking in different scenarios, different ways of looking at the world. I would also say travel. My favorite part of my career in advertising is that I have seen the world 10 times over. I think that has really just changed my view of the world. And so if I was talking to my younger self, I would say, if your boss says, hey, we need you on this trip, take it. Go, do it. Say yes. Try new things all the time. You heard my story about when I was traveling in Australia and New Zealand, and I don't know if I'll ever do those things ever again. I probably won't go mountain luging again. I do scuba dive a lot still. I'm glad I tried all of those things at least once. So to my younger self, I would say try it. And that, I think, also is a good lesson in terms of your growth as a leader, as an executive. What if I didn't want to take on my first team as a manager? I was nervous. I was scared. How am I going to manage these people? But it was great. And I learned. And I made mistakes. And I learned from those. So I would say, we'll go with another sports slogan. Just do it.
Yep.
Right? Like, when these opportunities present themselves, never think that it's bigger than you. And never think everybody else has it all figured out. They don't.
That's a great point. People really don't. Every now and then somebody's got something figured out, but everybody's tackling everything with some amount of unknown.
I've spoken to so many of my colleagues and friends and even mentors, and the imposter syndrome thing is so real, where you look around and you're like, I should be doing more. I should know more. I should be more successful at this thing. And it's like, well, how, if you've never done it before, why would the expectation be that you would be incredible?
Yeah. And is that somebody else's expectation or just yours?
Well, that's an excellent point. I'm going to be a little, what's the word I'm looking for here? New agey. You know, somebody once told me, would you ever talk to somebody else the way that you talk to yourself? My God, was that like, that hit me when that person told me that.
Yeah.
I was like, I would never talk to somebody the way I talk to myself. We are so much harder on ourselves than we would ever be on anybody else. Like, that hit me so hard. It might be one of the most impactful things somebody has ever said to me. Because now when I have any kind of negative self-talk, I'm like, wait a minute. Would you say that to Greg? Would you say that to Todd? Would you say that to Joe? No. You would never say those things. Have some grace for yourself.
I think that's a great way to frame it, and that's maybe even a great place to leave it today.
I love it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming. And congratulations on Playmaker Sports. Looking forward to seeing all the continued growth there. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Uncharted Paths is produced by Chelsea Strategies. If this conversation sparked something for you, please follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Greg McDonald, and if there's a story you think we should tell next, or someone whose path deserves to be explored, email podcasts@chelseastrategies.com.